for inviting us to come out this evening. I'd like to introduce Sheriff Sally Hernandez for some opening remarks, and then I'll introduce a few of our command staff, and then we'll get it going.
I just want to say thank you again for inviting us out here. The last time we came, we had, some really good conversation, and that's what we're here for today. We want to listen to your concerns. We want to try to answer every question that you have, and we want to, again, address those concerns. Now, there may be things we can't answer, right? And we're just out here to listen and to work together to figure out solutions to make living out here better, right? I love being a sheriff. I love Travis County, and not only Travis County, but just, law enforcement in general has a whole bunch of challenges. And so we need you and you need us, and that's why we're here. So I'm not going to take a lot of time talking because I want to really get to why you came. And I'm going to be here and look at all these experts up here ready to answer all your questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Just a few other introductions. So last time we were here, I believe we had Major Smith used to be the major of our Law Enforcement Bureau. We now have Major Billy Poole as over our Law Enforcement Bureau. He must have paid y'all. And then we have Captain Scott Crow, who's over our unit, the Community Outreach Unit, as well as our Criminal Investigation. And then my deputy in the back, some of you already know her, Deputy Alexis White, Community Outreach. So later, after this, if you need more information about some of the community presentations and programs, that would be us. But now, without further ado, we have our new captain over our East Command, which is your jurisdiction, is Captain Julio Hernandez.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you for having us. So first I'll introduce my team. I have Sergeant Matt Ryden, who's one of our CID sergeants. Detective Lisa Lucas, she's our new animal cruelty detective. Sergeant Mark Todd, he's one of our highway enforcement and accident team sergeants. And Sergeant Jeff Ford, he is our stray animal cruelty, impounds. Yeah. He's our big guy. He's the one we need. So he takes up the front. So first, thank you all for all these questions. We appreciate your concerns and we really want to address them, and hopefully we can. So I'll take care of the first few questions, or for most of the questions at the top. In reviewing them, most of the questions that I'm going to answer are pretty much asking the same questions, just worded differently. So it's basically, how do we get more patrols in the area? How do we combat crime? Okay. So let me start by trying to offer some context, maybe give you guys a little more perspective on how we address the issues. So this entire area is called Charlie. We call it the Charlie District. And Charlie District is bordered by I-35 to the east, or to the west, Bastrop County line to the west, or to the east, there you go, 969 to the north, and Turnersville Road to the south. So I don't know how big that is, but that is a lot of square miles. So to service that entire area, we have 3 shifts, and each shift has 3 deputies assigned per shift. So that's about 9 deputies per day, for all 24 hours. Okay. So in for the fourth quarter of 2021, the last 3 months of 2021, there were 3,514 calls for service just in Charlie. In 2022, there were 3,412 calls for service the fourth quarter. That averages out to about 3,460 calls for the fourth quarter over those 2 years. So you guys, that's about 92 days. So that's about an average of 38 calls per day. If you divide it by 9 deputies, each deputy's handling about 4 calls for service. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you take into consideration what every call is, it could be anything from a Class C misdemeanor to aggravated assault or a homicide or something pretty violent. They can be taking people to jail. They can take a lot of time just helping people with their issues, having conversations, providing guidance. So all those calls are pretty time consuming. So this is not to offer, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to give you guys some context about why you may not see deputies in the area as much as you would like, okay? Before that said, we did have 7 self-initiated community calls that we conducted over the same time span in 2021, and then another 7 in 2022. Self-initiated community calls are like community contacts when our deputies get out of the car and talk to people, go to the local stores, or directed patrols when they just driving through the neighborhood. And those are just the times when deputies take the time to actually put themselves out on the call. That's what we can account for. That doesn't take into consideration the time they come into the neighborhood that they don't put themselves out on the call. So yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you take into consideration all the calls for service that they are responding to, they are trying to get into the neighborhood as often as possible. Okay? So you're asking, how do we combat crime? So there's 3 ways to do that, in my opinion. There's prevention, intervention, and apprehension. Okay? Prevention entails what we're doing now. Meeting with the community members, educating community members, building relationships with the community so that we can work together to combat crime. It also means educating victims of crime so they don't become repeat victims of crime. Okay. It also, as far as our CID or our special operations units, are targeting and putting career criminals who are still kind of skirting the lines of the laws, holding them accountable for their actions, because most times, 9 times out of 10, the crime in the neighborhoods are not being committed by people that live in the neighborhood. It's by people from far off neighborhoods or surrounding neighborhoods. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm saying that's usually what we see. So by identifying the people committing these crimes, the one we can, the career criminals, the long-term offenders, the known offenders, we can reduce crime. That's one way we can reduce crime. All right? Intervention. Intervention is what we currently do. Crime suppression initiatives, where we actually identify high crimes areas through data collection, and we deploy resources into that area. Traffic initiatives, where we identify, the people that probably annoy you. They sit up on the corner and they conduct traffic stops. That's a good way to prevent crime, because that's, you conduct traffic stops, you make discoveries during the course of your investigation, and things go, they go the way they're supposed to go. Then apprehension, because in the end, despite all our best efforts, some people just need to go to jail. And if apprehension is not the enemy of intervention or prevention, it's just another part of the triangle, because sometimes, like I said, despite all our efforts to positively influence the community members, sometimes people just have to go to jail. So that's, hopefully that answered some of those questions. Another concern, and again, thank you for the questions, was what should we do to combat indiscriminate shooting by our neighbors to the southeastern part? Okay, so I went back and reviewed some reports as far as shots fired calls. That's how we title calls when citizens call in that they've heard shots being fired. And I agree, in some of the instances we could be doing more. And that's on me. I'm a new captain, but regardless of that, I haven't done my part to educate and train the people I work with on the best way to deal with the issues as far as shooting. There are statutes in place that gives deputies a little more leeway as far as the actions they take to handle those situations. Okay, specifically, there's Chapter 267 of the Health and Safety Code, and there's Chapter 62 of the Parks and Wildlife Code. You guys can look them up. I'll send them out to Nicole, and she can disseminate to the HOA leadership, and they're going to get them out to you guys. But basically, those are laws that deputies can use to try to at least correct action, or if necessary, go further. Okay. Once my deputies understand those laws and know the best course of action and how to enforce those laws and identify people legally, we don't want to violate anyone's civil rights, obviously. then they'll do a better job of doing that. So if they, in the moment, if they don't have what they need to make an arrest or a citation in the moment, they can at least collect information, identify people that might be at fault, and get that over to our CID unit so they can conduct an investigation. And if people need to be held accountable, they will be held accountable. Okay? So like I said, anytime the ball was dropped in this situation or in this particular situation, I apologize, and it's completely my fault. It's my fault because I didn't do the job of training the deputies. But we will be educating our deputies, and they will be doing a better job moving forward. I'm not saying that in every instance that it's going to be that they're going to be able to take these actions with these laws. Sometimes it might be another circumstance, or they might. Everything's nuanced, right? There's nuance to everything. Sometimes it's black and white, and if it is black and white, they'll resolve it appropriately. Okay.
Can I just offer some context on this particular
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
subject? Because I was here the last time you guys were here. Hi, my name's Evan. And I think you guys did a good job explaining, you know, the surrounding area and typically how shots fired work. You know, oftentimes it's just people on their farms or what have you.
Yes, sir.
I stay up pretty late. I listen. Like it's just part of my nature. So I hear these things happening. I would say at least once a month we have the shots fired, and to me, it's distinctly different from someone, you know, at gun range on their farm. The thing that makes it different for me is it's an entire clip.
Yes, sir.
So they go, they shoot an entire clip, and then it's done. And that happens at least once a month. That to me is like threatening, more like, you know, I don't like you on my land. That's what comes up for me when I hear that. So I just want to kind of offer some context as someone that listens consistently, has been, you know, took the advice from the last time you guys were here and has continued to listen. I just want to make sure you're aware that that's something that happens here quite often.
Yes, sir. And thank you. And I appreciate your comments. And
Can I just add something
yes, ma'am.
to that? So when we were here, we talked to you about having to go to the Commissioner's Court, right? We went to the Commissioner's Court. We also went to the county attorney just to talk about any kind of county ordinance that we could do by changing the amount of acres that they have and all of that. And that didn't, I mean, not that the commissioners didn't want to do that, but I think because of the laws and certain things that are in place, we couldn't move forward on that. But we did take that, your issue, because this is not the only area that, you know, has to tolerate that. And so we took it and tried to get them to change the amount of acreage, and the county attorney's office couldn't.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that's a tough one. I just
Yeah,
want to
no,
give
but
you insight because you guys don't always know what's happening here. And as someone that, you know, is a resident, I just want to give you information so that we can work together.
Yeah, well, it sounds like what the captain is trying to do is for us to become just a little bit more proactive.
And we definitely will. Like I said, we're currently working on strategic plans to deal with not only crime in this area, surrounding areas, but all over Travis County. Okay, the Sheriff Hernandez and Major Poole, that's their biggest push. It's about building partnerships, about making sure you guys feel safe in your communities, and if you feel like you can trust us. And the way we build that trust is by not only speaking on topics, but actually backing it up with actual, you know, things that we do, right? Successes. How do you measure successes? By setting goals and then meeting those goals. And we're all working together. We've set goals. My team is aware of those goals, and we'll be working toward those goals. And most of those goals, you know, include you guys. You know, like we're doing now. These kind of events, having these education opportunities. You'll be working with Deputy White and Nicole and her team, and working on a Crime Watch program. They're great at that stuff. And we're always here to offer you guys advice and resources. My team they'll be in the neighborhood more often. You guys stop and talk to them, have conversations. You know, they'll be in the schools having conversations with the kids. Right? Sorry, go ahead, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying that by his. I'm sorry that you experienced that. I don't want no one should have any kind of fear in the neighborhood where they live. The unfortunate reality of situations like that is that most times, by the time my deputies get here, those people are gone, right? And then we have to do our part to try to collect evidence or identify people, however they do it. And they do a great job of doing it. You guys have a bunch of great deputies working for you. They're all great. They're all dedicated to community service. They're all dedicated to, they all got that crime fighter gene. They want to go out there and chase bad guys down and help people and pull cats out of trees, you know. And that's not just a fireman's job, that's a cop's job too. So they're out there doing it. They want to do it. You know, they love doing that stuff. So please rest assured that you do have people in your corner. So, yes, sir.
If we do hear gunshots, what number should we call to let you know?
You can start with 911. If it's an emergency, you start with 911. If it's not an emergency, if you don't feel like it's an emergency, we have a non-emergency number that I'm not sure whichever is off the top of my head, but we can share it.
Our non-emergency number,
Yes, sir.
that's basically the city of Albany, brings the gunshot, the fire, CTAC. But it's 512-974-0845. It's always option 3 to our dispatch.
And Nicole, we'll share all that information through email. I'm sure she's in communication with the HOA.
Yes, so after this meeting, I'll kind of compile the answers to the questions and concerns and give you call to action of like different resources or numbers or websites you need, yes.
Okay, can the sheriff just be the sheriff? If it's gunshots, call them.
I got a question.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
If we do call, what kind of information is helpful to you to relay? Other than I heard 10 rapid shots off in the distance out to the east. What can I do to help you guys try and locate where
Well, the
this
call
develops?
taker will ask questions, but if you have a time frame of when you heard them, how many gunshots, and direction, possibly. I mean, that's as much as you can gather without
Right.
risking yourself.
Where you're at,
Yeah.
well, they'll know that your location, kind of, did it wake you up, how loud they were?
Cause like Evan, I hear him, I'm up late too, but I hear him all the time, makes my dog go a little crazy, but it's not somebody out there shooting pig on their farm, it's somebody just dumping a clip up in the air or whatever, so it's a little trouble.
Now, it's that. I mean, if you can get the call to us as soon as possible. We can try to get deputies into the area as soon as possible. Try to find someone. You know, I mean, if you by chance look, don't put yourselves in any danger. But if you identify a vehicle or something, relay that information, whatever information you can that you feel could be helpful. There's no such thing as too much information, right? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Howard. I just want to share also kind of a different perspective from that, especially kind of growing up in Austin my entire life and being here and living in every part of the city, pretty much where it is. My top concern for being here today really more so is the feet on the ground, the people who are actually causing burglaries, doing vandalism, and things of that nature. I mean, unfortunately we do live in somewhat of a rural area still, so there's a lot of farmland. I would guess over 1,000, 20,000 acres within our vicinity that people own, they still farm on. You see cattle right there off Ruxton. Coming with that property, especially having friends and family with property, I mean, there are people who are going to be sighting in their rifles, who are going to be out there just shooting recreationally. So I think that is some of what we hear too, because I am also a night owl, I'm up all night,
A lot of light owls out here, man.
So, it doesn't, I think there's cause for concern if you hear it within a very close proximity. But the unfortunate fact of the matter is that a lot of people are unfortunately, shooting their free will on there. Now I think if we hear more like to your northwest of us, where the neighborhood is, or north of us, there's really not a cool area over there. You can still gauge kind of where shots are coming from if you listen closely. That would be more cause for concern. That would raise my eyebrows for sure. But just food for thought as well while you're just sitting in there. Like I said, I think my piece being here today is that it would combat the people that are actually in our neighborhood committing these crimes. I mean, my truck's sitting out there with 2 busted windows right now. And that's where my concern comes in, the actual stuff that's going on within our neighborhood. Because, unfortunately, things like gunshots really can't be controlled to an extent within our power as a resident.
I know you have a lot of things to cover, and I don't want this to get derailed. But a lot of this started before they came last time, where the bullets actually came back down. So I don't think it's something to dismiss either. Like, that hasn't happened as of late, but we had people that reported bullets going through their windows, bullets going through the sides of their house. I don't know if some of you guys remember that. And that was where we asked you guys to come the first time. So 100%, I think we're all on the same page, and I want to cover the stuff that you're talking about too. I do think that's more within our control. But I think it's all relevant and it's all fair, and we need to get on the same page with how we deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely, and the shots fired thing, yeah, but, you know, the deputies are trained and educated, they understand the laws, and they're able to discern what is an actual violation versus what is someone exercising their constitutional rights, as far as being on their property, target shooting or whatever, versus someone who's out there in the middle of the street shooting into the air, endangering lives. So,
Captain, you have one of those.
just now.
Well, I was just gonna say, my house faces William Cannon, and our neighbors hang out late at night, and we have at least on 5 occasions seen people shooting outside of their car as they drive by, so it is an actual threat. And so my question is, when this light is installed, will that be something that has cameras, so if that happens, they're installing a light right here on William Cannon.
Stops the traffic light?
Yeah, so I'm curious, will there be cameras there, so let's say these people, because they just drive down William Cannon, pop, 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 pop. Is that something you guys can look at?
Well, if there are cameras available, they can look at them. I don't know if there's gonna be a camera there.
Got it.
We can find out, you know,
Okay.
we can try to get that information for you.
Yeah, it might be worth trying to get them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's cameras on the street, on the, in the public, you see cameras on the stoplights or whatever. Our CID units have access to them, so,
Cool.
but as far as this one in particular, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I figured it was a long shot, so, thanks.
Anyone else?
How is that phone number different than 311?
So 311 is for the city of Austin call taking, that's their informational line and report taking over the phone line, where that's gonna go to the city of Austin or city of Austin police. Now, if you did call 311, they would transfer it over to our dispatcher, so we would eventually get.
We do a lot better to
It'd
call
just
this
be a little
number
bit-
to get straightened out.
Yes,
Okay, thank
it'd be
you.
a lot faster to do the transitional that way to get our dispatch.
Anyone else?
Couple questions, but you mentioned data points that you guys look at, you mentioned, which is good, that's what, we should be looking at that.
Yes, sir.
With the calls to 311 or to the other one, when you're gathering data and you're looking at, where's propensity for the violent crime, where's propensity for the property crime, all of those are being factored in? Is that right, all those types of phone
All
calls?
calls for service.
You're all taking all of those in?
All calls for service and the location,
Okay.
yeah.
And so for situations like this past week where, we had multiple, break-ins, right, property damage, is it fair to say that if multiple cars were hit, but only one person reported it, that's only one data point for you? And therefore, if multiple people were reporting their own personal crimes that were committed, those are multiple data points for you, which would give you a little bit more context of what's happening?
So, you wanna talk about that?
So, the new system that the FBI had pretty much all of law enforcement go to is called NIBRS. And that report is almost exactly how you described it in the video. I'm sorry.
Just doesn't go about voice.
Not getting out there.
He's shy. Hey, welcome to the stage. Welcome to the stage. Come on, Sean.
It's required that you get multiple burglaries, but it occurs all in the same episode, it can only be one report. So, before that, we would say, okay, sir, you were burglarized, you're a victim, here's your case number, ma'am, you were burglarized, here's your case. And then we would have 2 separate incidents that we'd be working together with one detective. But in this case, because of NIBRS, if we had 10, we're gonna show 1. And that's the unfortunate piece of that for data collecting, like you say. But the detectives and the sergeant here, who's over property crimes, Sergeant Ryan, he's gonna know there's more than that. And there was a great episode of somebody or a group of people coming through the neighborhood hitting multiple vehicles.
Is there a way to weight that somehow? Because I understand you mean this one.
That's something we can
Maybe
break.
it's 10 people versus 1 person.
Right, but and through our crime analysts, that's something we can break down because you're gonna see 10 vehicles
Yeah.
and you're gonna see 10 victims. So it is internally able to break down, but if we were just to say how many vehicles, how many cases or how many vehicle burglaries did you have last night, we could just say 1, or if we break down into the data itself, we could say 10. There's still a way to pull it out, but if it's for immediacy, we'd probably just say, well, if I ran it myself, I'd see 10. I'd just see 1.
Just, you bring up great points there, so I want to add one other thing, is when we talk about data, I just want to be clear so no one leaves with any misinformation. It's not in the moment data. So there's not a system that we have in place that looks over the last 3 days and all of a sudden all the law enforcement shifts to that area. That type of data is going to be drawn over sometimes over a month as we're pulling statistics with our intel analysts doing something like that. What happens more in the heat of the moment within day to day is the staff themselves. You go to an apartment complex and all of a sudden one evening or overnight, 15 cars are burglarized in one apartment complex. So the good and the bad. The good for all of you that are in here is your neighborhood is really, really good when it comes to lack of crime in comparison to many other areas in the county that we end up having to focus some of those resources or some of those proactive operations that Captain Hernandez was talking about. But what happens is day to day. So Deputy Scott Crow tells Deputy Billy Poole, we got killed last night in such and such neighborhood. And then those officers are talking, those deputies are talking, trying to figure out if there's any kind of MO or anything that ties into somebody else with another group or another area, or was it just that random? Or sadly, say a group of juveniles came into that particular neighborhood and in one evening went truck to car or whatever. We also run an auto theft task force, and I will tell you, and any other sheriff can kind of just shake their head and look to it, no matter how many PSAs we've done for people requesting they lock their vehicles, I would say 80+% of vehicles that are stolen or burglarized are unlocked, no matter how often. So it's a crime of opportunity. A person's gonna go and start going through those doors or going through those items looking for the lease. The worst case scenario is where this gentleman's experienced, they actually decided they saw something or for some reason they smashed a window to get in and get stuff. But I just want to clarify that piece of the statistics. We do look at it, but I don't want anybody thinking it's that instantaneous that within 3 days we see another hotspot and we can shift all the resources to that area.
And can I just add to that, that if somebody, I mean, you might be the person that locks your car and takes everything in, but if your neighbor doesn't lock their car and doesn't take everything in, it actually, they come to a neighborhood and they see whether this is right for picking, right? And so helping police your neighbors, you know, and advising, it helps.
And that's part of educating the community. Are we reaching out, having these conversations? I don't know if you guys have a newsletter for the HOA yet or have an establishment. Put that in there. Just reminders, lock your doors, because what we see, we call them door hoppers. They get out of their car, they go into the neighborhood at 2 or 3 in the morning, and this is all they do. They're not breaking windows, they're just doing this. They might break a window, they see like a laptop or something cool in front, but basically they're kids and they're going like this, and they're opportunists, right? So that's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna work hard for it.
Let me hop on that for you. So I'm over property crimes, and I probably review 350 to 450 reports a month. So that's all the property crimes that are committed. Yeah, so I review 350 to 450 property crime reports every month for the whole entire county. So that's all the way, you know, Jonestown to San Leandro to Pflugerville area, I mean the whole Travis County. And the majority, like the major said, is probably 80 to 90% are just crime opportunity. They left the door unlocked, or they left a valuable in there. So they locked their door, but the laptop's sitting there. So you're just gonna smash it up. I might see 5 to maybe 10% to where nothing was in the vehicle, it was locked up, the door is smashed, and they checked their console. And some of the videos I see, these guys will come out, 2, 3, 4 guys, just check doors, all the way through the neighborhood. So then they know which neighborhoods are the ones that don't lock their doors or leave their valuables in there. That's a big thing with these guys. Those 2 things right there will make a world of a difference. And I know it's so simple, but a lot of people, they forget about that and they just don't do it. Those 2 big things right there. Those kind of cases with burglaries.
Thank you all for coming. Howdy neighbors. I'm Shaniqua. And I guess my question here would be, like, have you all identified a root cause for the crime, particularly in our area and or like the, you know, Travis County area?
You want to get that?
A root cause?
Root
Yeah.
cause. From the reports that I see and everything, it's population. Travis County, just people are moving here. And a lot of these guys, a lot of these suspects, they're coming from San Antonio. They're coming from other places, and they'll come in and they'll come over for a night, hit 3 or 4 neighborhoods, and then they're gone. So I think Travis County as a whole, just with the population increase, I would say our county is one of the top ones in the nation with population increase over the last 2 to 3 years. So I think that's a big factor.
And we're seeing a whole bunch more of groups, right? When I was younger, it was 1 or 2 kids, right, doing something, but now we're seeing them come in groups and take over everything.
And the reason I asked is because when you mentioned like, and I know you're probably just like, you know, sharing like, just maybe like some types of offenders, but like, just hearing like the idea of like kids, you know, being silly, taking the opportunity to like steal, and you know, none of us here want to like have our property stolen, what have you, press charges, and like now that kid's part of the system, and now they're more likely to be repeating that whole cycle, and here we are again, 5 years later, talking about increase of crime, because now we have increase of like convicted felons, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like wondering, like, is there any partnership between like the sheriffs as well as the police officers with like community efforts to like help change the opportunity, like change like hearts and minds of these like young kids, potential thugs, felons, like whatever you want to call it, just like so we can have a better community in addition to policing efforts.
Well, I want to just touch on that because we have been going through along with the DAs and Garner Vance, the juvenile detention center, and the probation officer there. We are working together to do some of those things that you're talking about,
like the root cause
causes.
analysis.
Yes, and so we're working very close with them, and right now we're working on a project that has to do with assault family violence. But we are very much talking about that because you're right. You want to stop them from.
Well, yeah, because I think at a baseline, like no one in their right mind would want to like commit, like shoot at someone and potentially go to prison, right? Like we all know, like murder, you go to prison, right? So like no one in their right mind would want to go to jail. So like how can we help our community and also live safe in our community that like we work so hard for to get here, so.
If I could just add to that, and I know we'll go back to you guys. So our unit, community outreach unit, which is WY, my other deputies aren't here this evening, but that is what we do. We do programming and presentations in schools. They do youth mentoring programs. They work with, you name the service provider in the Austin area. We partner with Boys and Girls Club, YWCA, like a million. We focus a lot because that's one of Sheriff Spig's initiative is working school to prison pipeline, the whole youth. So we work on that preventative piece, is what our unit does. So we're out there. If you have great ideas, or communities or youth you can think of that would share with me, please.
And could you also add that to the newsletter? Because I may want to also sign up for, like, if I can help in any way.
For your HOA newsletter or our agency newsletter?
HOA newsletter, if that's like
sure. Like share my information. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to answer your original question, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. Like, one, that yes, I think that all of us feel like very safe here, and a lot of people leave their car doors open. It seems like a common thing. You wouldn't think it, but it's an obvious one, right? Like if our cars are unlocked and they come around once and they see that we had our cars unlocked and they make out with some nice stuff, what do you think they're gonna do? You think they're gonna not come back, or do you think that they will come back? And two, I mean, I think this is a fairly affluent area in what has traditionally maybe not been an affluent part of Austin. And there's just money that's coming in, and people here have nice cars. So that's the other kind of obvious piece to me is like, you have a nice car, you're leaving it unlocked, they're probably gonna target it, you know? So I think there's what is within our control, but in terms of like why, I think it's kind of obvious why they're coming back here.
Well, we see crime in all neighborhoods, committed by all kinds of people. So, like we mentioned, it's mostly opportunists taking advantage of situations, taking advantage of people they think are weaker. And it sucks that you have to be so vigilant in your neighborhood, in your backyard, but you do. That's the reality of the situation. And we share that message with anybody in any neighborhood. You protect your property, look after your property. But it's really just, it's not about having a gun or pointing a gun, it's about locking your doors, you know, putting alarms up. If you're in a position where you can put cameras up, put cameras up. Just check, have a checklist and check off the boxes and take those steps, and you should be okay. And back to Shaniqua's question, yeah, you know, there's a huge push. There's always, ever since I've been with the sheriff's office, to get into the schools, to get to the root cause of the issue, to get to the kids as young as possible. you know, to influence them positively. We do the mentorship programs. We do have storybook session meetings. We sit down with the youngsters and we read books. And we go out and play ball with them when we can. You know, it's informal and it's formal.
I love it. He likes to throw the kickball real hard at the kids.
Yeah. Hey, they gotta learn.
He loves
they gotta learn. Life is tough. You know what I mean? So anyway, we do it. We're out there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thanks for being here. I was wondering if you could speak to what type of a role does lighting play as a deterrent for crime? And I'm respectful of the Dark Skies initiative, but I live in a part of the neighborhood where there's still a lot of construction, and we've had a little bit more activity, and so my neighbors and I were all, you know, we speak to each other, we keep more lights on now. And I reached out to my builder and said, hey, and down this entire street, there's 0 lights, and there are 0 street lights. Can you just leave some porch lights on? And they did that. And I think like little things like that. So can you speak about lighting?
You set it off. It's one of the biggest things you can do. It's like put up lights, put up bright lights, put up fog lights, spotlights, you know, put on time sensitive lights or motion sensitive, whatever you can, put them up. I mean, you know, creeps like the dark. If you can light it up, they like roaches and they'll go away. And you know, not to say some of them are bold, but more, you know, that's a good way. That's a good way to start. You know what I mean? Put up lights. If you can, you can put them up.
And I think even security cameras help.
Yeah, absolutely. They see
that little dot.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Where we moved from out of state, our community was across from a school, much like here. And we did that in the morning and in the afternoon when the kids were going to school and getting out. There was a blinking light that came on. And we knew that during that time period, if you were going on speed limit, it was a $500 fine. We haven't lived here long enough to be out at night to see, you know, what other neighborhoods have. But do they make a light that can be put at the entrances to this new community that says patrolled by Travis County? That at night it would blink, during the day it was just there, but at night it would maybe blink because it's nighttime, or would that be a deterrent to
I mean,
people coming in?
any lights are a deterrent, but as far as patrolled by Travis County or blinking lights when people walk by, I haven't seen that. I mean, we could find out for you. What I have seen are the blue and red lights or the blue and white lights on traffics, on like speed signs. So somebody's going 40 and 35, that thing starts ringing and catches people's attention because they think it's a cop. So that's, I mean, if you have traffic concerns, that's something that you could, you know, HA or whatever, you guys can look into. And I'm sure that exists. If not, if you guys want to, I mean, I'm not going to suggest anything. There's things you could do. You know what I mean? You guys are a big community. Pool your resources to get what you need. Yes, sir.
So it's probably more of like a budget question per se. Yes, I mean, I guess it comes down to budget for, you know, particular precinct or district. But in regards to like repeat offenders, people who are like breaking into cars and, you know, vandalizing things. Like for instance, like I had blood in my vehicle, and the way that my truck is set up, you know, it's really crime deterrent per se. I mean, I have, you know, I see some that's just a hobby local lane where they have a lot of deterrent equipment that's on there, and you literally cannot take certain items off my truck without gloves. Like it did not have gloves on to really get to them. So things of that nature with blood being in the vehicle and potential fingerprints, I don't know if there is or not, but you know, from when I spoke with the deputy that night, you know, he's like, yeah, if I have some time, maybe I'll come back and dust the vehicle. You know, obviously you didn't. And I was like, yeah, I presumably probably sure you're probably not going to come back, which is fine. I get it. So I don't know if that's a budget thing per precinct or per, you know,
budget as far as
being able to spend the dollars to go and, you know, I don't think necessarily maybe every vehicle needs to be dusted when you get a break-in, right? I mean, that just sounds excessive. But if, you know,
that's not a budget thing. The deputy should have dusted that. If he didn't have a reason to dust it, he could have articulated that reason to you. So that's things that we need to be made aware of, so we can educate our deputies and train our deputies that that's not the way we want to see. I'm sure there might have been a reason why. Maybe he had a call or she had a call.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did. I think he said
and you know,
like that. I mean, I didn't think too much into it in regards to that. You know, I wasn't offended by it. It's just more so just thinking out loud, like, you know, when there's things, when there's physical DNA left there in the vehicle. Granted, you know, even if it's a dust, you know, you may not have fingerprints if they're not a repeat criminal, if they're not a criminal at all, and they're just young juveniles who get throughout for in the vehicle. But if they're repeat offenders, I think that creates an opportunity to go ahead and actually get an ID or identification on particular individuals.
Well, there's no budget concerns, and yes, we have protocols in place as far as collecting evidence. There's probably 10, 20 reasons why the deputy might have had to go off and do something else. More often than not, our deputies are collecting evidence, fingerprints, shell casings, whatever they can find, because that's how.
Did your situation happen during the same time that everybody else's, where they came in?
Yeah,
and got it?
he actually knocked on my door, just first, he, kind of let me know. Yeah, that was the case, yeah, obviously there were things going on that were outside of the major.
They might have gotten.
And you couldn't really even see, I couldn't see blood until the next morning when they go back and out all the vacuum and stuff, so he must have cut himself on the windows trying to get in or crawl in or open it, something to that effect, but it was just something that crossed my mind that I figured could be.
Yeah, and that's not a budget concern. The deputies, we have protocols in place, and like I said, there's like, they might have gotten favors from the 10 other vehicles and time, whatever, but there's other factors. Yes, sir.
I was curious, so we were kind of part of the same thing, somebody's trying to open our car doors tonight. Based on like looking at the timing of comments coming in and everything in the neighborhood, there's probably about 40 minutes where it looks like these guys were kind of going through the neighborhood. I was curious what the response time averages would be to get somebody out here so that,
Yeah, I don't have that information, so that's something we have to go look into, find out what average response time is to different areas. So I'm sorry I don't have that information for you now, but we can try to get it for you, okay?
And if you're asking for specifically for that night, that's what he's talking about. But I think when he started his presentation, there are 9 deputies on and covering a huge area. So it depends on a typical day, it depends on where they're at and what they're on for that response time.
So we have a few more questions to get through. I'm sorry,
Okay,
he's the boss. He's the boss.
No, because I want to clarify something. 911, he may not know, but I'll change the major over the bureau, far less than 40 minutes. Most likely under 10 minutes if it's a 911 call. I know y'all may hear, read, or whatever about other agencies, so I'll speak about ours. Our supervisors, I have been out there, I've been a deputy, I've come up through, and Lord forbid, you're sitting somewhere and there's a call for service on that screen. You better be on a call, it better be a priority that supersedes that call. If you're on a burglary of a vehicle, you better leave that burglary of a vehicle and come back if you can to go take a 911 call. So from that perspective, all of our staff practices that, from a brand new rookie deputy all the way up to my level. There's priorities, and supervisors are managing that constantly.
So let me try to get to some of these other questions before we're out of time, okay? Because I don't want to leave here like all upset. Let me get to my question. Okay, so this one is for Sergeant Ford. What can Travis County do to remove inoperable vehicles that are parked on the streets, leaking fluid into the ground and into the storm drains?
So first, let me say that driving through the neighborhood, I was here a little bit early, and I drove through the neighborhood, and thankfully I didn't see any vehicles that fit that description. I know it's a fairly new subdivision, right? So, but there's a couple things that can be done if that should occur in the future. One thing I did notice was there are some private roads within the neighborhood, and then there are some that are public. What we can do for the public is, if you have a vehicle that's inoperable, that's 5 years old, and it's sitting in the same spot leaking or what have you, we'll what we call red tag. We'll put a sticker on it, and if it's not moved within that 48-hour period, we can have it towed. However, on the private roadways that are within the neighborhoods, we don't have that power. However, you as an HOA do have the power. You have a lot of power to deal with that, more than we do on the private one. Okay. With respect to the leaking of the fluids, and there may be some other recourses by way of the environmental route. If it's leaking into a waterway or something like that, then we can address it on a case-by-case basis. Any questions involving that? I mean, yes.
You said case-by-case basis. Does that include private roads?
Private roads, the things that we can do on private roads, reckless driving. If somebody's driving recklessly through your neighborhood, or if somebody's obviously driving under the influence, we can enforce those things. But as far as the abandoned vehicle, you're going to have more power in the private area of your residence than the Travis County Sheriff's Office will. But on the public roads, we can do the abandoned vehicle. So, and generally, what we try to do is get compliance first. If there's a vehicle, there may be a number of reasons why that vehicle is there. it could be money, they can't move it, or what have you. Educate them, that's what we try to do first. Educate them and let them know, hey, why this is a hazard. And try to get them to comply first, before we take any enforcement action. Okay. All right, good.
Thank you, Sergeant Fuller. Next up, Detective Lucas. She's bragging so. She's no hard-hitting questions. All right. Can Travis County assist with enforcement of off-leash dogs that are aggressive and charge people or other animals?
Yes. The answer to that is yes. If they are caught with their dog off leash, it is a citation. So just like you're driving and you drive in your car and an officer pulls you over for speeding and you receive a citation for that, it's the same level of offense, all right? If you're caught by a deputy with your dog off leash, they can be issued a citation, or the owner of the dog can be issued a citation. If you're calling it in, you wanna call the non-emergency number because that's not an emergency. They will need to be caught. So camera footage, something like that would be great if you have it, but that's not always going to be the case, okay? So it just depends on the deputy that responds, how long it takes them to get there, whether you have evidence of that or not. It's kind of a hit or miss kind of situation, but your dog should be on a leash, and not a really, really long leash, a leash that you can control, okay?
If you know somebody's walking schedule, that.
Call it in ahead of time.
Does the video footage serve as enough evidence to issue a citation, or does an officer physically have to see it?
It's gonna depend on the circumstances, okay? It's gonna depend on the deputy's interpretation of what he sees. I can't say that yes, in every single situation, that's gonna be the case, because it may not be. Any other pet detective questions?
I wasn't gonna say it.
Just call me Ace. Here all day.
So, okay, so this for Sergeant Taub. Does Travis County Sheriff's Office enforce parking in fire lanes and towing on private roads?
So, I'm pretty sure y'all are hearing me back there. I've never been told that I don't have a loud voice, so if you can't hear me, let me know. As Sergeant Ford addressed, the private is gonna be a problem. No, we cannot enforce that on private property, but I got here a little early and I drove through the area, and I think we're talking about the private center of your community. The HOA has the power to remove vehicles. You as a homeowner have the right to call and have a vehicle towed if it's blocking your driveway, if they park in your garage area. So all you have to do is call, and the HOA can even reach out to a company, a tow truck company, and kind of set them to patrol the area if you want. That's completely up to you, but as the Travis County Sheriff's Office, we cannot write citations for fire lanes. We cannot tow vehicles that are in the private area. Now, throughout the community, it's a different story. Once you start getting into the area that's not private, yes, we can issue citations, and we can do what the traffic code says we were able to do to enforce, so. Yes,
Just
ma'am.
a question, what streets are you considering private?
So, I wish I knew them offhand, but I can tell you.
It's the blue sign. Yeah, it's the
Simple.
sign that has a label.
Yeah, the blue signs that say PVT on them, that's gonna be a private road, and, when I got here, I made some calls, and I looked on the county website. Those roads are not even on a map anywhere, okay? So technically, Travis County is not gonna be able to do anything there. Now, when it comes to criminal activity, yes, and it's the same thing as Sergeant Ford said, reckless driving. I noticed you don't have any speed bumps through there. So if you have someone who's reckless driving, you have someone who you feel maybe is impaired, yes, we can do that, and that's not an issue. But when it comes to the fire lane and towing vehicles, we don't have any authority in the private area of your community.
All right.
So on some of the public roads, we have parking on both sides of the roads. At times, it can be too tight to get through because of parking on both sides. Would our community work with the Sheriff's Department to restripe some of those areas to have designated parking spots on each side, or is that a T-Dot thing?
It's not gonna be the sheriff's office that have any authority on restriping anything. Now, if it's restriped, then yes, then we will have to be able to enforce certain things, but that's something that you have to work with another county entity.
Good. All right, Sarge, you got one more question. Stand up. How will the speeding on William Cannon and Colton Bluff be addressed and around the elementary school?
Okay, well, I'll tell you this, I got here at about 4 o'clock today, and I'm the sergeant over the traffic unit, and I'm not the one that usually goes out and does the traffic enforcement, but I felt I'm not very familiar with the community, so I felt it would probably be a good idea to spend about 2.5 hours in here and run traffic, and that's exactly the areas that I address. So I'll tell you the issues that I found and some ideas that may help you to address that. So I wrote 7 citations, okay, and don't start clapping because I'm going to tell you something that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's right. So 6 out of 7 were people who lived in the community. Only 1 person was cutting through, but it's usually how it goes, I hate to say. But. And then, so the issue, and it was speeding, and there's a stop sign. This is, make sure the person's not in here. So, so there's a stop sign. Is at Apogee and Colton where you make the right turn? Yes, right by the school. Part of that road on Colton is shut down, right? So I just went behind the barricades there and just watched this person run the stop sign. And the person tells me, well, I ran it because I know that road's closed, so there's nobody coming through. So he still received a citation. I kind of explained to him, you know, that's just bad habit to practice, that just because there's no cars coming from this way, there could be people crossing across the road here. So most of it was speeding. Everyone except that one was the stop sign. I just wanted to get a feel. So the biggest problem that I see in your community here is there's no speed limit signs, right? And so I made it a point to ask everybody, well, what y'all think the speed limit is here? And most of them usually said what they were traveling.
It's 75.
Right. But the reality is they have a very valid point. So that would be the first thing that I would suggest as the HOA is deal with the county, get signs put up there, because I even told the gentleman the prima facie speed in the county and per traffic code is in a residential area is 30 miles per hour, right? Well, if you don't know, some of the people were traveling 39 that I stopped, there's a 41, you know. It's fair to say he maybe thought it was 40 because it looks like it's just a normal road, but that is kind of fast for a community, right? So, number one is I would address that, get speed limit signs, and we were talking about, I think, ma'am, you said something about lights and speed limit. I do in my unit have a radar trailer. And what that is, we can move it around and we place it on the road. So that was a mental note that I made, and I'll start addressing that. So you should be seeing one here probably next week or two. I'll make sure that we get one, just so people know how fast. Maybe they just need to see it in front of them. It helps slow people down. So that's another issue. But speed bumps are a great, especially in the private area where we can't really do much of enforcement. And you know, there's like some great straightaways in the private area there that I imagine people are shooting through. So I feel you on that, but that was my intention to run traffic. But as soon as I walked in and I saw the blue private signs, that threw that idea. So I just kind of worked the area around. So to address it, I'm going to talk to some of my traffic guys. We have a few traffic officers I can send out here, especially during school times, and they can write some tickets. The issue that I see is, according to prima facie, for 30 miles per hour, it has to be, I'm trying to quote it here, 100 yards from a school, right? And the house here across the street, I didn't bring out a measuring tape, but I thought it was close enough for 100 yards because the next prima facie for urban areas are 60 miles per hour. So, I mean, there's no way in my mind that I could see the speed limit being 60 miles per hour here, but understand that someone could argue that part because that's what the book says. So I talked to some people, and I think maybe you need a traffic survey in the area. And so I've got the name of the person that I'm going to contact for that. So hopefully in the near future, and that's not going to be with the sheriff's office, that's going to be with the county, that they can come out and do a traffic survey, just so we can assure that the survey's been done, that it is falling under the 30 mile per hour and not the 60, because I hate it to be a loophole. We all know sometimes there's loopholes, and I don't know if that's 100 yards from those houses across the street. I try to, in my mind, I'm simple, a football field, right? So, like, can I put a football field here? And I think we are within 100 yards, but I think it'd be safe to have that traffic survey. So, those are just a few things that I noticed in the 2 hours I was out here, and the things that I can personally do to try to help you all out.
That portable speedometer trailer, we're on the board for Union Park West, which has private roads. Are you able to bring that as a resource into the private road community, or not allowed?
That's a good question. Again, we have no authority to write citations and enforce traffic laws, but personally, and I'll double check, I don't want to step where I shouldn't be stepping. So I don't want to say, yes, we can do it. If it's a possibility, then we're not enforcing, we're just, I call it educating the community on how fast they're going.
Right.
So I'll do a little research on that, and if that is something we can do, then that's something we can look into. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
I'll just say, if you come back and you set yourself up on Apogee or Hillock up in Skyline, you'll catch people all day long.
I did.
Especially right by the school.
As it comes descending down,
Right by the school, there's that hill there, and people come flying through. There's no school stop sign or crosswalk or anything.
And I'll say, 2.5 hours, 6 or 7 citations is not a lot. And I saw a lot of people, and probably maybe it helped that I have this big bright car that says highway enforcement and lights are everywhere. That might be something they clued in on as soon as they come around, because I noticed some people, they started slowing down. But truly, a majority of people were traveling in the 30s, okay? And I kind of give people that leeway, 30 to 35 to 38. Once they start breaking into the 4s, then it's time to stop them. So most of the people are driving 34, 35 miles per hour. The top speed was 57. A lot of 40s, but yes, I think as a traffic unit, it's prime picking out there because people are speeding and it's wide open roads. And again, I'll double down that y'all need to really push hard and get speed limit signs on there because that may slow things down. And I did give a warning to a gentleman because I truly believe he hasn't had a ticket in like 35 years, right? So he's not a habitual speeder. But he told me he had no idea how fast the speed limit was, and he was traveling 40. And, he said, well, I don't really think this is like a neighborhood because it's not in the neighborhood. It was on Apogee, right? But, again, I truly believe he had no idea what the speed limit was. So, that would definitely help you all out.
So who does the HOA reach out to? Because I know I've had neighbors ask them about getting signs up, and they said they have no power to do so. So that may not be clear to them.
Honestly, I don't know who. If
No disrespect to the
anyone.
TNR, Transportation Natural Resources for the county. They were included in the last meeting notes, but I'll be happy to include the contact again.
Because I don't have kids, but it blows my mind that there's not a speed limit in front of the school.
We also have to remember that we are a very under construction community. We're still a baby out here.
I know, but kids
So
are
a lot of
important.
this times it'll go through in steps, in phases, as a development helps us out to cover all those areas.
Sure, but the school's been here a while, so to me, that's never gonna be an argument.
It should be there.
Yeah, I agree.
Sir?
And I'm not here.
So how does the connection work between Travis County and Austin when it comes to driving down like William Cannon? Because I don't know if y'all have driven down William Cannon, the speed limit is out, I think it's 85, maybe 90.
Officially or unofficially?
Well, so, my question is serious because that's the boundary, right? That is officially the city of Austin on that side, Travis County's on this side. How is that gonna be managed? Because the people that haul, going to 183 down William Cannon this way are the same people that are gonna be hauling going that way towards town.
Yeah, I can give you, so I can tell you kind of what we do as patrol officers and what we can do as a traffic unit. So as a patrol officer, as we know, some streets are maybe in the city that we have to take to get in the county. So a patrol officer who's just driving around, maybe go to an area and he notices somebody speeding on William Cannon, he may initiate a traffic stop, as he should with a speed limit like that. I would assume, and I'm gonna say they will with that kind of reckless speed. When it comes to communication about it, personally between the officers, there is none. Between at Austin Police and Travis County patrol officers, as in, okay, let's work traffic on this road. It's gonna be both departments as they're traveling through, they see some serious infractions, they see a vehicle swerving, they see a vehicle with extremely expired registration or whatever they decide and they notice, they will conduct traffic stops. Now, as a traffic unit, when I talk to my guys and I'm gonna send them out to a certain area that we're having problems, the roadway, it needs to be a county roadway. You know, our resources, as you heard, are thin, and we have a hard enough time managing ourselves and what we need to cover versus going in the city and running traffic. So if it is a county road, then that's something that I can have my traffic officers go and do. So if it's unfortunately the city limits, then that's something the city would have to focus. And I know you're talking like one side of the road may be the city, the other side may be the county, but the question that we have to figure out is, and we know the answer is, who actually has authority over the road? If it's in the city jurisdiction, that's something the Austin Police are gonna have to. If it's in the county jurisdiction, that's something that I can address, so.
Thank you, Sarge. Go ahead.
One more, you mentioned speed bumps, but I think at one of our town hall meetings with the HOA, they brought up that Travis County doesn't like speed bumps because it slows down emergency response times. Can you clarify on that?
So, all I can tell you is when I'm responding to a call, I hate speed bumps, okay?
But it's not an official policy.
Yeah, right. I don't like them because obviously it slows my response time and it takes me that much longer to get to you if you need something seriously. So that's a joke. I don't hate them. I'm just not a huge fan.
And we will,
okay?
if you're asking if we're gonna run interference to your HOA getting those, no, that's your stuff, that's between you and your
Right.
HOA. You have no dog in that fight. So I was told, start wrapping up.
Told you I talk a lot.
He does. So, just follow up on what Sarge said, we do have a traffic email. Nicole will share it. So, obviously moving forward, in the next few weeks, we'll get a team out here to start doing, enforcing traffic laws or running traffic. But after that, if you guys notice issues, shoot an email. Sarge and his team will get what they need in place to get it remedied, okay? Before I leave, he's pouting back there, and I asked him to come, so I will make sure I introduce him. And I think he thinks I forgot him. That is one of our best sergeants. That's Sergeant Andre Caldwell. He is one of so he works these hours, the evening shift hours, and